the White House is ending a whole system that used to, just until now, used to let an outside association decide who gets access to the president and who does not. An organization known as the White House Correspondents Association, they used to control a good amount of press access to the White House. And now the Trump administration is replacing them with a new White House press pool and is also promising more access to new outlets, independent journalists, podcasts, radio hosts, and so on. Now look, White House and AP on this. This comes on the heels of the administration removing AP News from the news briefings for allegedly refusing to use the new name for the Gulf of America, right? Now, AP is suing to overturn. They're saying, how can you remove us from the White House? The case is raising debate now over whether the White House has the right to determine which media are allowed in the briefings and which ones are not. And while AP is, again, saying that they should be allowed in, other people are saying, well, what about all the different journalists? What about all the different news outlets that were rejected from having this access, again, by the White House Correspondents Association? Now, look, it seems the new shift could answer that question even further, right? Whether this is legal or not. This is White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt on the announcement of the new press pool. Watch.
As you all know, for decades, a group of DC-based journalists, the White House Correspondents Association, has long dictated which journalists get to ask questions of the President of the United States in these most intimate spaces. Not anymore. I am proud to announce that we are going to give the power back to the people who read your papers, who watch your television shows, and who listen to your radio stations. Moving forward, the White House press pool will be determined by the White House press team.
She goes on to explain how legacy news outlets are still going to be allowed in, right? They can still have access. They're also going to rotate between some of the preferential seats. They can't just give themselves the seats where they can ask questions and so on. But the White House will also start allowing access to news outlets that had previously been denied access by this association. And this could also help the White House reach new audiences and that, might also highlight different stories and angles using that access. Because look, some are criticizing this. Some are saying it could allow the White House to give preference to news outlets that will be more favorable to Trump's policies, right? He'll put all the people who like him in the front row and they'll be the ones deciding the news. Others have countered that point, noting it's already been like that. The general political bias of the establishment media tends to lean overwhelmingly in support of Democrat policies while being opposed, very hostile oftentimes, to Republican ones. And so was this an issue when Biden was in office and he kicked out most of the independent journalists? Well, others have also noted that previous administrations on that point have done similar things, actually even further, and denied access to conservative and independent media almost altogether. One example of this was from August 2023. The Biden administration changed the rules on press access to the White House. And what did that do? Well, they created an additional credential that required journalists to get a hard pass. This is one of the press passes you need. And they needed the hard pass to get access to the president and to that whole system. This led to more than 440 reporters losing their press passes. They're making a fuss over AP right now. Biden pushed out 440 reporters. And look, other outlets could only get day passes, Lex access. They could still go in, but basically had no influence. And the move overwhelmingly gave favor to legacy news outlets and largely discredited independent and new media. Now look, also on the point of the new White House policy, there's been an ongoing debate, especially among conservative news outlets, on whether the press policy should be changed. Now the ongoing argument is that the press pool was run in such a way where establishment news outlets, because they were given power over it, over the White House Press Association, Correspondents Association, legacy news outlets basically had the ability to deny access to their competitors. These were business competitors, and they could say, you're not allowed to do this. And they could then grant themselves preferential treatment because they were the ones deciding who got that, and they gave it to themselves and their friends. And these actions have also, had influence over the types of stories we see coming out from the White House, because this is how it works. The outlets that get to ask questions to the president, whether it was Biden or now Trump, they're also the outlets that get to influence the quotes and the available information for the day's news. If they want to manufacture controversy, all they have to do is pull out their hit piece questions, ask controversial questions for their topics, and they can write all the hit pieces they want because they have the access. The new quotes from the president responding to their inquiries create fuel for more stories. If they want to manufacture support, well, they just focus on those angles. They basically get to decide the news cycle through having that access. And look, since they largely controlled that, right, the White House Correspondents Association, who gets in, who doesn't, who gets to have that access, who doesn't, it also meant other news outlets without that kind of access, being denied by their own competitors, had to rely on the quotes and clips from the organizations that gave themselves that access. So the question was, look, should the businesses that benefit from this also be able to control it? Well, now we have seen that power structure get shifted. Now we'll have to see what it means in practice. The Trump administration, they only just recently announced this, and so different day for the White House, folks. In other news, illegal immigrants in the United States will now need to register with the federal government within the next 30 days. And as part of this, they will be fingerprinted, and any illegal immigrant who fails to register will now risk facing civil penalties. Now, the decision on this was announced by Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, who said this is an act to enforce the Alien Registration Act of 1940. Now look, the United States Citizen and Immigration Services described the new policy in a thread on X. Here's what it said. It said, in support of executive order protecting the American people against invasion, the DHS requires all aliens, any illegal immigrant, to register with USCIS, Immigration Services, right? Failure to comply, it says, will result in criminal and civil penalties, up to and including prosecution and fines. All illegal aliens, it says, all of them 14 years of age or older, with limited exceptions, who are not fingerprinted or registered when applying for a U.S. visa and who remain in the U.S. for 30 days or longer, must apply for registration and fingerprinting. Actually, important note on this. In the actual writing, they're saying aliens, not just illegal aliens. Illegal aliens would be a much more narrow category, still a very broad one. Aliens means any foreign person, effectively. Any person who is here, not even just illegally. This is a big, right? But it notes this as well. Parents and guardians must ensure that their children below the age of 14 are registered. Within 30 days of reaching his or her 14th birthday, the previously registered alien child must apply for re-registration and be fingerprinted. Once an alien has registered and appeared for fingerprinting, unless waived, the DHS, it says, will issue evidence of registration which aliens over the age of 18 must carry and keep in their possession at all times. Meaning they can't just say, I don't have my documents, don't deport me. If you don't have your documents, now this is a much bigger deal. Now, this new requirement, this is part of a January 20th executive order from President Trump on protecting the American people against invasion. And the order on this says this. It says, over the last 4 years, the prior administration invited, administered, and oversaw an unprecedented flood of illegal immigrants into the United States. Millions of illegal aliens crossed our borders or were permitted to fly directly into the United States on commercial flights and allowed to settle in American communities in violation of long-standing federal laws. Many of these aliens unlawfully within the United States present significant threats in national security and public safety, committing, it says, vile and heinous acts against innocent Americans. And notes that others engaged in hostile activities, including espionage, economic espionage, and preparation for terror-related activities. It says many have abused the generosity of the American people, and their presence in the United States has cost taxpayers billions of dollars at the federal, state, and local levels. It adds as well, enforcing our nation's immigration laws is critically important to the national security and public safety of the United States. The American people deserve a federal government that puts their interests first and a government that understands its sacred obligation to prioritize the safety, security, and financial and economic well-being of Americans. This order ensures that the federal government protects the American people by faithfully executing the immigration laws of the United States. That's the official executive order from Trump. Now on that, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, she also explained this further during an interview with Jesse Waters on Fox News. Watch.
The Alien Registration Act says that within 30 days of being in this country illegally, someone must register with the federal government. They will be fingerprinted. They must announce that they are here. And if they do so, they can avoid criminal charges and fines, and we will help them relocate right back to their home country. And what this does is provide them an opportunity to come back someday and to be a part of the American dream. If they don't register, they're breaking the federal law, which has always been in place. We're just going to start enforcing it.
Repeat the name of the website for the illegals to register, because I don't think I got it.
You were testing me. It is USCIS/alien registration, but they need to go there now today, because within 30 days of being in this country illegally, they should register. They will be able to be fingerprinted. We'll know that they're here, and we'll help them go home. So it's fantastic, and it's a tool that will help them become an American the right way.
Now look, it seems the new executive order is meant to clear many of the barriers that have been inhibiting the Trump administration from very quickly carrying out mass deportations. This is what it basically does. It makes it so every illegal immigrant, every alien, I don't even know how broad that is, every alien needs to register with DHS, which it seems to be used to deport them. It seems to be the intent of this is to have every one of them be forced to register and be deported. They will deport anyone illegally here. And anyone who doesn't do that, well, it seems that any illegal immigrant who fails to register could then be legally deemed a criminal, which can enhance the process of removing them. Remember, one of the issues they have is they go knock on doors. The guy on the inside can say, you keep on knocking, but you can't come in. If they don't open the door, you can't deport them unless they have a warrant. And this means they can now get warrants because the individual can be deemed a criminal. And of course, they can also face other penalties, which if they want to have a legal method of coming back to the United States, this will make it a lot harder. In other words, this will fast track, it seems, some of the operations. Or at least I think that's what Trump is aiming for.